Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Impact Discipleship. This is part of our testimony series. Today, we have a last-minute entry. I asked Tiago Beiter to give his testimony. I don't know exactly what he's going to share. I know he has a long testimony of how he came to the Lord and what the Lord did in his life, and it's pretty powerful. And so he seems a little bit like, I don't know what I'm going to say, but I've heard him tell his testimony before, and I think he's going to do a great job. So dial in. I bet you his story is your story in lots of ways. And he's a total overcomer. So take it away, Tiago.
Okay, so I'm going to tell my story about how I found God. To start, we have to go before I found God, when I didn't believe in God and any of that. My childhood was very rough. I had a very broken childhood filled with a lot of challenges, a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, a lot of sorrow. So I was 4 years old when my dad left me, and it was just my mom raising me. But the problem with that is my mom was addicted to drugs My mom was addicted to drugs her life. The day I was born, she got in a car accident, and that was the day that the doctors prescribed her Oxycontins, and the day I was born was the day she became addicted to drugs. So what that looked like for me was just it was poverty, it was going through withdrawals, it was dealing with her addictions, it was a lot of bad things that a child should go through and not have to experience, like her spending the money on drugs instead of paying for us to have food, or paying for us to have water, or paying for us to have electric. It was her dozing off and her withdrawal. It was just a lot of bad things, and that left me very lost as a child without any guidance or anyone to really show me what life is and how to live life. So I was stuck figuring out on my own very, very young, because I realized I couldn't look to others to guide me in life. I had to kind of figure it out by myself. So with that mindset, I got into all the wrong things and started following everything the world has to offer. By the time I was 12 years old, I was smoking weed every day, and I was selling it and stuff, like a sixth grader, just getting into that, because I thought that's where I can find a sense of happiness and find a little something to get me by through the days. And by the time I was also 12 years old, I was moving around and bouncing in houses because my mom was going in and out of rehab. So I stopped living with my mom completely by then, and I was just living around with whoever can take me at the time. And the pain that I was going through as a child, I was so lost, and I was trying to find happiness and purpose and love and peace and all these things through the world. I was doing it through weed, and then that wasn't enough, so I started chasing after girls and having sex with girls to feel these emotions and feel their energy and feel the love they have. And then that started to not be enough, so I started to chase after money with selling drugs and all that stuff. And I just, through all of this chasing and through all these things that the world has to offer, something deep down inside of me knew that this wasn't enough, because it wasn't fulfilling this empty hole in my heart. It was just leaving me more broken and wanting more, and I knew that there was something else out there. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea how to fulfill this emptiness in my heart, and I was lost trying to put it and find it in everything. So I eventually just started putting it off. I started saying, okay, I'm depressed. This is my life. How can I just get by and not have to think about this? Whether that's just playing video games all day, and then next thing you know, the day's over and it's the next day, and I didn't have to think about all my sorries and all that. Or that's just numbing myself with drugs, or whether that's just chasing after girls and getting the high from that. But I just realized, is this what life is? Am I going to spend the rest of my life doing this?
How old were you when you realized that?
I visited my uncle who was in prison at 16, and he told me something. He said, the whole visit, these are the only words I remember. He said, nothing in this world will fulfill you. It would either leave you broken, or it'll leave you wanting more than when you first wanted it. And those words, they were, like I said, I was learning that all myself, just going through life. And for him to say those words, it's like, wow, that maybe he's right. He ended it saying the only thing that can fulfill you is God. And at that time, I didn't really believe in a God, so I was like, I don't know about all that. But those words, him saying nothing will fulfill you, they stayed and resonated with me for the next few months to come. And everything I did in life and everything I chased after, those words were just in my head, sounding and alerting me like, this isn't you're going to this to fulfill you and replace your emptiness, but it's not going to happen. So by the time I was 17, my first girlfriend, the first girl I started having sex with, she cheated on me and broke up with me. And when you're like a kid and your first girlfriend that you start having sex with, the connections and all that, when you get cheated on, it was like the end of the world. I'm not like that anymore, but it was bad for me. So it was that, and then it was also, I just moved back with my mom since I was 12. For the first time, from 12 to 17, I started living with my mom again because she said she got clean and she was out of rehab and all that. But she wasn't clean, she was still addicted, and she spent all her money on drugs, so we actually got evicted out of that house. And then, so it was my girlfriend breaking up with me, it was me getting evicted out of the house, which it's more than that, because like I've been waiting to live with my mom since I was 12. I was just just no parents type of thing, just wanting to go back with my mom. And then I came back thinking she was clean off her life, but she wasn't. She still was stuck in this darkness. And the eviction, the girlfriend breaking up with me, I just bought a car and saved all my money, and it got wrecked and totaled. My dog that I just got, it was getting like sent to the pound because someone called and said it. My whole life was just crashing down on me, like completely crashing down on me. Everything I've been looking forward to and building up completely wiped out from underneath my feet. And it was like in that moment of just me being so sad and so lost and like, what do I do with my life, that I remembered the words my uncle told me. And I was crying at that moment, and I literally got down on my knees and I said, God, if you are real, if there's someone really out there, show yourself to me right now, and I'll give up my life for you. I'll pursue you instead of pursuing everything this world has to offer. It's just, that sounds like a fairy tale to me, so I need to know it's true before I do all this. And almost immediately, I'm on my knees still crying out, just like looking up, praying to him, and almost immediately, this feeling of just peace and happiness that I've never experienced before at all just completely took over me and overwhelmed me, to where it was like a life-changing moment. Like, I was very numb and I was very sad and depressed early on in my life, and for me to feel these feelings of peace and just like all that weight lifted off my shoulder, I was like, okay, like if this is real, if this is who you are, I can live like this. Like, it makes sense. I want to chase after this. So he downloaded that feeling kind of to like show me I am real. But remember, my prayer was, if you are real, show yourself to me and I'll do whatever, I'll chase after you. It wasn't just like show yourself to me. It was show me you're real and I'll be obedient to you. So it wasn't until I started being obedient to him and losing my life to find it that I really found God. It wasn't in that moment that I found God, but it was through the chasing and through the denying of my flesh and losing my life that I found God. There's verses that says, what's the lose your life? Those who want to save their life will surely lose it, but whoever loses their life will find it. And there's just I never read the Bible before. I started reading the Bible and doing one of these things where it's just like, I'm going to go right here and read this, and then it just speaks to me. But everything that was speaking to me was showing to me everything my uncle said was, this world has nothing to offer you. No amount of sex, no amount of drugs, no amount of money, no amount of this, that. Nothing will fulfill that void inside of you. Nothing will give you that feeling that you're looking for. So it was just me reading that over and over and coming to the conclusion that, yeah, this is right. This is how you're supposed to live your life on earth, in obedience to God. So immediately he told me to give up selling weed. He told me to give up sex. Those were the first two things I had to struggle with. And that was hard at the time because, like I said, I was getting evicted. I was paying my own bills. I was buying my own food. I was buying my own cars. And I was making more money selling weed than I was working. In fact, it wasn't until I was 20, 21 that I was making as much money as I was selling drugs. So it was 3 years. I gave it up, and it took me 3 years to start making that money again. And then same with the sex. Is the reason I think that verse is true is because it's like if you're looking to find love and happiness through sex, it's just going to keep leaving you broken and broken and broken. But if you take that feeling and take that void, and instead of looking to it through sex and start looking to God for it, that's where I feel like you really gain that actual feeling you're supposed to be getting. Where am I going?
So your life started crashing down. You realized God.
You have to talk in the mic. Take your time.
Thanks, man. There we go. So you were talking about how your life started crashing down, and then in that moment is when you found God for yourself. So weed and sex were the first things you gave up. What did that look like afterwards when you were like 21? Talking about how you were 20, 21 when you started making the money again. Like, did you notice a repercussion of you starting to obey God? Like, how did your life start changing when you were an
Gotcha.
adult?
So I went to God to fulfill my depression and to fill this pit in my stomach, and in return he fulfilled it, and then he started giving me more than I can ask, think, or imagine. He started building my life and building my mind up in ways that I didn't go to him for. It's just that was the natural occurrence that happens when you start giving your life to God. So at 17, when I gave my life away, he started to show me early on visions about myself, and that I would have a family and kids, and that I wouldn't be in poverty like I was when I was a child, that my kids would be financially free from all that burden and all the things I went through. So I caught hold of this vision that he was giving me, and immediately I just started grinding my life away. I dropped out of school after 8th grade and just started working full time until I was way older. I started managing restaurants by the time I was 18, and I just kept managing this restaurant, managing that restaurant. I just kept managing restaurants to absorb all the business entrepreneurship mindset behind it all, so that I can take that and do something with my own. So it's through giving up and through being obedient, it was more things than just sex and drugs. It was a lot of dying to self and a lot of resurrection of him in me. It wasn't just, it's still a journey that I'm going through today. It's probably a lifelong journey, but through doing that, he really, really, really fulfilled and wiped away and satisfied everything that I've been searching for. And now that it's like the foundation is built and I'm no longer struggling with things, he's building me up in other things like career and ministry. And it's just, obedience to God is life. Like there's these laws that I try to teach all my friends, that whether you're Christian or not, this world has laws in it. Like the law of gravity, whether you believe in God or not, God placed the law of gravity. So every time an apple is going to fall down from a tree, it'll never fall up. It'll never just sit there and float. Whether you're Christian or not, that law of gravity is still an act in our lives. And he made two other laws that have kind of been what I've been pointing to and realizing, whether you're Christian or not, the wages of sin are death and obedience equals life. Those two laws, whether you're Christian or not, sin will always produce death. I don't mean like physical death, like mental death, emotional death, spiritual death, financial death, relationship death. If you are living in a life of sin and trying to fulfill yourself through sin, the law says it will only produce death. So whether you're Christian or not, you may realize that yourself. But on the flip side of that, the only way to obtain life is through obedience. It's not through faith in God. It's not just I believe in a God and He is real. It's through obedience. It's through works. It's through living your life for Him. And that is when you find your life. Like,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
So knowing a little bit about your story, we saw the beginning and we see the now, right? But in between, there was the typical ups and downs like we see from the Apostle Paul. Why do I do the things I'm not supposed to do? And there was some wavering in between. I think a little bit about that story would be very encouraging for people because it's very rare that somebody comes to the Lord and they jump from that experience. Now I know this is real. The only thing that will fulfill me is God. To living for God completely, like I think you're either approaching right now, very close to that now, right?
I think I'm there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, your life has been really transformed. But there were years in there that there was ups and downs, struggles and some depression and things that went on, like, and even I think right when you had that experience with God, shortly after that, you were going to be taken away from this area, from your surrounding friends and so on and so forth, and you came and stayed here. Mm-hmm. Like from that story forward, in between, why don't you tell a little about that?
So when I became evicted at 17, God divinely placed me in this home with Jeff and Andrea, and I think that was the beginning of my that was the walk. That was the beginning of my walk. That was the foundation. He put me here to absorb everything they had for me, and that was a real blessing. But to go back towards the struggle, once it came true that this is the way, this is the narrow road, and this is the broad road. The broad road leads to destruction. The narrow one leads to life. It wasn't just like a overnight, all right, no more sex the rest of my life, no more drugs the rest of my life. No, it wasn't an overnight process. It took a lot of ripping out and dying to myself to come to this, because when you live 17 years of your life not knowing in God and not believing that, it's like you're deeply rooted. Everything, your mind, your soul, everything clings to these things. And it's very hard to uproot yourself. It takes a lot of work and a lot of restoring of the mind. But to those that are still struggling in those things, I remind you that the wages of sin are death and obedience equals life. I know that right now it might be hard to stay and get out of these things, but I promise you, in you staying in these things and you trapped in these things, it's going to make you worse off in life. And I caught hold of that pattern very early on, and that's kind of what gave me the access to free myself from sin, is because I was able to look at it before it happened. Like, I know where this is going to lead me. I've done this before. Am I just going to really fall short and be weak and do it all again, or am I going to try to hold on to these promises and go this way? And it's really just holding on to the vision and holding on to the truth in those moments, because until you're like where I'm at now, your flesh is going to be very weak, and it's always going to scream, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do my will separate from God's will. So it takes a lot of transforming of the mind, a lot of praying, a lot of work, a lot of practice, a lot of discipline. It takes a lot for you to start really living in obedience to God.
I want to interject. I want to ask you another question, and then you can keep on that path. Just because the people watching, they think, okay, they get that. They're experiencing that. But maybe mention the importance of discipleship, mentorship, like connection to someone to guide you. And also your close friends. Like, you guys have a very, very close-knit group. Sometimes you've all done the wrong things together, but you're certainly very powerful together, because fellowship and accountability. So kind of just talk about that a little bit.
Mentorship is like the biggest, like if you don't have a mentor or someone ahead of you to grab a hold of, I think you're gonna, like naturally you're just not gonna progress as fast. There's something about mentors where even if you're Christian or not, like Christians can, I mean non-Christians and non-believers can see how important it is to have people above you kind of shepherding you and like leading you up ahead of them. I was blessed to have Jeff and another mentor in my life who spent years and years and years of their life dedicating themselves to the Word of God. So I was blessed with the opportunity to have mentors that already had the answers to every question I've already asked, even the ones I haven't asked yet. I had the opportunity to have these mentors that have lived out their life in the way that I'm headed and have had all the experiences, have had the struggles, have been in the ups and downs. And because of that, I was able to learn from their mistakes and take shortcuts towards where I wanted to head. I didn't have to go through all the same things they went through because they told me, like, this is my mistakes, you can learn from it. Or, like, even in the beginning, I was about to say you can learn from it or you can do it yourself. In the beginning, I was not learning from their mistakes. I had to learn for myself still. I was very stubborn in the beginning, and I would not listen to my mentors. They would say things, and I'd be like, nah, I think I got this. And they're going to be like, all right, you do this, that's going to happen. And I did this, and that happened. So the mentors are very important. And then grabbing hold of brothers and friends who are on the same path and have the same vision to you are equally as important. Because when I was 17 and I gave my life away, I had a friend group that was selling drugs and doing all these street things like little hoodlums. My best friend is actually in prison right now for murder, so that just kind of tells you the crowd I was hanging out with. I had the opportunity to stay with these friends who were going to hold me down and drag me down, and I wanted to go this way, they were going that way. If I chose to be friends with them, I don't think I wouldn't be in this position where I am right now because their influence and their bad morals would have corrupted mine. So very quickly after leaving them, after God said no longer be part of them, God gave me new friends and Christian friends and friends who are on the same path as me. And what that did for me is, like, it's just life-changing when all your friends are on the same path as you and they all look at this situation the same way and we're all in alignment towards the same thing. It's just like we grow very fast together. We go up very fast together. Even if you're not Christians, it's all throughout business and entrepreneurship that you want to be friends with, like, people ahead of you or on the same path as you, because it's very important. Any other questions?
Anybody have questions for Tiago? Why don't you tell us something about some of the, maybe not, you don't have to expose too many details, but, maybe a handful of times when you, like, made the choice to ignore the advice of somebody discipling you and then had to circle back around. By the way, for the audience, you guys know this is the story of the Israelites, right? I call it going around the mountain. You can approach the promised land, don't cross over, circle back around, right? So maybe one or two examples of what that looked like. And then the other thing I would like you to talk about, as I'm thinking about, is maybe the importance of work ethic.
Okay. For me, my biggest struggle was females. Everything else I was kind of easy to set aside for God and be obedient to, but the thing that kept coming back and resurfacing for me in my early ages was females. And my mentors would just express to me how all that can really just take you away from Yahweh and bring you back into that darkness, especially if it's with the wrong female. And unfortunately, I was attracted to very bad girls, not the right females. So I wasted a lot of my life even after becoming a believer, chasing after love and these bad females. And I remember when I first became a Christian, I had like such a authentic relationship. Like I was so connected to God and so on fire with him, and the passions and everything was there every single day. I would wake up so excited to read his Bible. I'd get off work so excited to read the Bible. And I started talking to a girl, and all my mentors were like, you be careful of her, don't do this. And then we ended up not having sex, just hooking up together. And then the next morning, everything was gone. All of that was gone. All the feelings, all the powerful things I was feeling. It's like Yahweh just took it away and removed it from me for that. And it literally took years and years of trying to catch back up to where my mind was and where my emotion was. Like I acted in sin, and then it's like wisdom just left me almost. It says wisdom comes and goes based off obedience and sin, and I really felt wisdom just leave me. And then like I was just searching for it and trying to find it in all these things. And then the other question was the importance on work ethic.
Yeah, I know that you have like a tenacious work ethic, like a head down, get her done, kind of like a rhino. And so talk about that.
So that comes from my childhood. It comes from my mom. It just comes from the poverty that I felt. It comes from me going to bed, no AC, no power, in a summer Florida night. It comes from me waking up at 4 a.m. just drenched in sweat to where I can't get back to sleep, to where I had a bowl of water next to my bed and I dip my hand in it and then like spray my body to try to fall asleep. I just lived a very broke and moneyless childhood, to where I was so hungry for money and so hungry to have the opportunity to go out with my friends and do these nice things, that it created a huge fire and underneath of me. And I remember saying earlier when I was 17 that I caught hold of a vision that I'm going to have a wife and kids, and I'm going to be financially free from all these things. So once I caught hold of that vision, like where I was in life, it wasn't a happy moment. I was working on happiness and I was trying to find it in God, but I was not happy. Thinking about a future with a wife and kids and being financially free and being able to travel with them, that is what pulled me out of my darkness. I was in this, but I was looking towards that, and that's all I was focused on, to where the darkness and where I was at now was like no longer, I didn't care about it because I knew I was going there. And I wanted to go there very fast and get out of this. So I knew that the faster I headed towards that and the more I worked towards that, the faster I would get out of all this. So that is why I dropped out of school after 8th grade and started working full time and started managing all these restaurants. It's because I had this vision, and this vision was so beautiful and so surreal to me that it's either do or die. Like I'm either going to spend my entire life trying to chase after that, or I'd rather die. Because if I can't have this vision, then I don't even know what life is about. But it's because of that, it's because of the vision and where I came from, that I was so driven towards the work ethic and grinding 60 hours a week. Now I own my own business. I own a business, I own a restaurant, and I own my own house. And I don't have a college degree. I don't have mom or dad money. I didn't have this. It literally was just for me managing restaurants, working my butt off, just overtime, and just trying to find more ways to get to that vision and get to that purpose. Now, between the two businesses, last year they made over $1 million. And if you told 17-year-old Tiago, who was just managing a little burger place, that he would own 2 businesses and a house generating this kind of money, it would be surreal. It would not make sense to him. But that's what happens when you live your life obedient to God, is he opens doors and gives you more than you can ever ask or imagine.
So I had another question. Being that you came from all that struggle and then had that transition, what are some of the tools that you're using now to be successful? Like, what are some of the real fundamental tools? Not like, sure, like how to run a company or manage QuickBooks, but like, what are some of the character tools or traits that you've matured in and are using to like conquer life? Like, what is really pushing you day to day?
It's literally just my vision, honestly. It's not just my vision, but it's this vision that I know God has planted in me. So it's such a fulfilling and purposeful vision that it gives me life and gives me reason to wake up every morning. I remember before God, when I'd wake up every morning like, what is the point of all this? Am I really about to go work 14 hours again and just give my day away to make 12 an hour? Life was so meaningless and so purposeless, and like I honestly didn't want to live. If this is all life had to offer me, I did not want to live another 60 years here. So in finding that vision, I'd say that's where the change happened, because it's, like I said, it's so beautiful to me, and everyone each has their own beautiful vision that they can imagine themselves doing the rest of their life. But that was mine, and now that I knew God was behind it, and I knew God wanted me to have it, it was just like, it was crazy to me, because I didn't come from a place where I believed in a God and believed in a hope for tomorrow. I didn't come from a place where I believed things would get better. So hearing that God wanted me to also achieve that, and He's behind me in that, it shifted my entire life completely. And I say that that vision is probably my biggest source of inspiration. That is why I'm so easily to not have sex anymore, because I want that pure marriage. I want that godly woman. I want this blessed family, and I know that sexual immorality can ruin that. I want this financial freedom, so I know that I have to build businesses and generate ways to create passive income. So now I'm grinding towards that. I want to have a nice house with a lot of room, a big yard, maybe a pool, a house. I want to be able to take my family on vacations. It's all these visions that I have that I'm working. Like, I don't believe any of that will just fall into my lap. Like I said, God is behind me in all of this, but I do not believe for a second I can just sit back and trust in God to give me all my dreams. I have to really chase after them and grind towards them, and it's in that pushing and it's in the grinding where He opens all of the doors for this. Because there's this Christian belief system where just claim it and it's yours. Like, I want a new car, now some divine miracle is going to happen and God's going to give me a new car. I don't believe in that type of Christianity. I believe He opens doors for you, but He's looking for those who are faithful and willing to put in all the work to get there.
Now, you're saying that vision, which I totally believe. The Bible says, delight yourself in the Lord and He shall give you the desires of your heart. Trust also in Him and obey Him. But there it is, obey Him, obey His commandments, and He'll make it come to pass. But I'm also thinking about, because I know your story, there was a time where those ideas that you could have it all, or you could really achieve those things, was completely foreign to you. Like, I remember when you moved into our house. Can you tell maybe a story about the conversation, or at least the interaction you had with my wife around her saying that to you about, if I remember correctly, there was some kind of like impartation in a sense that, to believe that about yourself.
It was me. I was 17 working in Chipotle. I caught hold of the vision, but I still didn't have all the steps planned out to get there yet. And then I was a grill cook at Chipotle, just cooking all that chicken, cutting it away. And then your wife said, she said, why don't you become a manager there? Like, why are you just a cook? Why don't you want to raise the ladder and go above and beyond? And then, I never thought about that. And part of me was like, I don't think I'm worthy, and I'm 17. There's people that have been working there 4 or 5 years trying to get manager. And it was like a sit-down talk with her, and she really made me believe I was worthy of it, and I was capable of it, and that I can do it. So it was after that, it was not even 4 or 5 months after that I was no longer just cooking and cutting chicken. when I was working with the intentions of Yahweh is my boss. God is my boss. If I want a raise, if I want a promotion, if I want an increase in pay, I have to work my butt off for Yahweh. I'm not working my butt off for the Chipotle managers to notice me and for them to see my hard work. I'm working so that God can notice me and God can see my hard work. So that looked like me working my butt off, and then I had 30 minutes of free time, so I was doing other people's jobs. I was just doing their job. There was no such thing as free time anymore. I'd work harder to get more free time, and with that free time, I was helping everyone else on the team. And immediately they saw that change and saw the dedication and the responsibility and the ownership I had, and they started training me for manager before I was even legally able to be manager. Like the day I turned 18 was the day I took my Serve Safe manager test, and it was all lined up beforehand, but that all came because Andrea challenged me, and she said, like, you're definitely capable of this. There's no reason you should just stay a cook your whole life. Like, you have to increase and go up, so just go after it type of thing. And it changed my mindset, and I was a manager ever since then. I've never been like a worker. I've always been a boss now. Is that it? I feel like he's
Just
about it.
any final words, like for somebody? I mean, there's a lot.
Meaningless.
This is the impact discipleship portion of Kingdom Embassy Ministries, and the whole idea, the reason this was born. And I, for some of you may not even know this, but this part of the ministry began before the actual Friday night church service that we've been doing.
It was us.
It was you. It was you little. It was you. Well, you guys were very little, and very little, and I remember thinking after one of my wife's programs, saying, "Hey, we gotta expand this and include some. The girls have to have discipleship also." So it's that generation. It's this young adult. We call it today the young adult study. Maybe some final words, because your story, although very unique, has lots of elements that are very similar. Everybody comes to that Romans 7 situation where they are challenged between the two persons. The old person, the ways of the flesh, the carnal nature, the spirit of man, and the new person, which is motivated, inspired, and energized by the Holy Spirit. So maybe just some final thoughts on how you do that every day in order to lay your head on the pillow at night and say, hey, I'm still living for God today.
My final thoughts for those watching: if anything I said can relate to you, and if any part of you is still searching to fill that void in things of this world, I want you to consider these things that I've been saying. Is nothing will satisfy you. It will either leave you broken or wanting more. The only thing that can fill that void is God. So in your guys' search to fill these voids and to find true love, true peace, true happiness, I urge you to remember that I don't believe you can find it on this road. And as you continue that journey, you'll come to that realization yourself. And when it's time and you're ready to say, you know what, I'm done trying to do this my own way. I'm just going to do what God's saying. Like, I can't figure this out on my own anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do any of this anymore. When you come to that place where you humbly just throw your life away to God and say, whatever you say, I'll do it, because I have nothing else. I have nothing better to do. I don't remember what I just...
That's good. No, excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know that's going to be very encouraging to lots of people. Listen, if Tiago can overcome, being evicted and having the fear of nothing, and a father who left him at 3 years old, 4 years old.
Wait, I do want to add something.
Oh, he wants to add something. We're going to do part 2. Go ahead.
You can ask me a question, but just to not leave off on a bad page with my mom, she was addicted to Oxycontins my whole life.
Yes.
It was actually through becoming a Christian that I started to pray for her, because I realized she's really doomed. She's just more lost than I am. None of it was her fault. she didn't choose drugs, like her doctor prescribed it. And the addiction is like two minds. Like there was an addicted mom and then my mom, and when she put on that addicted personality, it was no longer my mom. But I think when I was 20 or 21, she went to prison for a year. And as soon as I got the phone call that she's going to get locked away for a year or two, I knew immediately that it's time for God to save her. So now where we are today, she's been clean for a few years. We have a great relationship. We talk every week. She's actually, her and I own that restaurant together. She was managing it for a few years and I bought it. So now she's managing the restaurant I own. And I just like lay back and get a check every month. We have a great relationship. Like Yahweh completely restored all the damage that was done in the past, and now that damage that was done in the past made me who I am today. So I'm thankful for that, and I'm also thankful that we're not there anymore. And you had a question?
Well, what I was going to ask you is the contrast of your biological father leaving you, or you and your mother alone when you were a very small boy, to how does your relationship with your biological father show up at this stage in your life? I know it's not necessarily like perfect, but because I've been so close to you for many years and I've seen certain like things change, some of it for the better. Like, did you notice that there were any elements of your heart and the way that you would look at and view at your biological father like change, and part of it be redeemed? Maybe not your relationship be restored, but the views you had over him as a man because of leaving you versus seeing him as a man today.
The transformation that I would say that happened is I just have more compassion for him. Now that I'm an adult, I understand that he's just another human being trying to figure it out, just like everybody else is. And he doesn't have God, so I can't really hold him accountable to the things, because without God, it's just everyone's on their own. Morals are subjective, everything's subjective, everything's just based off life experience and nurture. And so I don't look at him with the pain and like, how can you do this anymore? It's just more love and more compassion and more like, I don't understand why you did this. I'm not going to try to take the time to understand this, but I do understand that in your best ways, you're showing the love that you know. And I actually met his dad a few years ago, and it all clicked to me. The love that he was showing was the love that he knew. The way that he was a father towards me was the way that his father was towards him. So he didn't even really understand a right from wrong in this area. So I don't really hold it against him as much as I used to. But because of that, like now it's given me great empathy, and I'll be a great father because the lack of father in my life, like it really did a lot for me.
All right. That's fabulous. Thank you again. That's part 2 closing, short one. We'll see you all next week. Next week we're continuing in our study through the book of Proverbs. We'll be on chapter 3. After that, God willing, we're going to have another testimony, another powerful testimony. I know that story as well, and wow, it's going to be another great one. See you then. Bye.
Like, comment, and subscribe.